Let's go back. We talk about the Good Friday Breakfast. Featured speaker tomorrow, goodfridaybreakfast.com, is former Attorney General John Ashcroft. Good morning, John. How are you, sir?
I'm delighted to be with you.
So you're following up Ted Nugent, was the previous guest. So
no pressure, no pressure, Mr. Ashcroft. So have you been to Tucson before? Is this your first time?
Oh, I had the pleasure of being in Tucson on several occasions. I think I was there once as Attorney General back about close to 10 years ago.
I kind of remember that. It was the border's always been a hot issue down here for quite some time.
Indeed it has, and it is a significant challenge.
Well, while the Attorney General spot is always a unbelievable hot seat, as the Attorney General during and post 9/11, your ride was something else.
Well, it's something I don't regret, but it's something I don't think I'd want to do again.
Everybody should do that once.
Yeah, well, I certainly regret what happened to the United States. That was a vicious assault, and it was the worst loss of death inflicted by a foreign power against the United States on our soil in our history. Mm-hmm. But it required us to do some things to try and keep that from happening again. And in that respect, when something bad happens to you, making something valuable out of it is important.
Yes, and you're speaking Friday morning regarding your faith and your background along your faith movements, and maybe you could explain to the listener a little bit what they might hear on Friday.
Well, it's not a lot different, really. The story of Easter was something bad happens and something good comes out of it. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I think what Easter means to me, the story of the resurrection, the crucifixion and the resurrection, is that it's always too soon to quit in life and never too late to start over again. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, has been the case. Folks will learn a little bit about some of the ups and downs of my political life, because I've lost more elections than most politicians are willing to confess. And every time I lost, there seemed to be a way for recovery and something even better to happen. So.
Isn't that part of the American spirit, though? Just that we're in a country where you can just keep going. You can fail in business, fail in politics, and just keep rolling.
Well, I think that's it. I think that's part of our religious and cultural heritage.
Yes.
That we learn that nobody's free in the past. Yep. Nobody can change the past. But everybody's free in some respects in the future, because we can all change the way the future is by the way we change our conduct and what we devote ourselves to. So shaping the future is what freedom's about, and that's certainly consistent with the story of the resurrection and moving your life in the right direction.
Yeah. Hey, John, you've been in public service for at least
2-3 years.
And it's okay. I mean, Buddy Holly was really big when you first started.
That's right, the big bopper.
What's some of the real simple moments of your public service career that aren't the ones that people see on the camera, that isn't the one that you're on Fox News or something like that? What are the real quiet moments of public service that make it worthwhile doing what you did and losing that many elections?
Well, I think every once in a while you'll see young people who come along devoting themselves to public service, making sacrifices in terms of their own agendas and families to do the right thing when it should be done. Yeah. And they'll say something, I watched you and it encouraged me to make these choices. And that is both very rewarding and incredibly scary, because people could watch me and make the wrong choice many times. I certainly don't hold myself out to be a model. But whether we like it or not, we're modeling behavior in everything we do and say. When I was governor, I used to have a little slogan, which I said, in everything we do, we teach. Mm-hmm. And we ought to be very careful what we do, because we're teaching all the time.
And the game of politics can be so rough and tumble, and there's so many turns and tides. But when you see the next generation coming through, and it gives you hope again that, hey, maybe we do have a chance to make this all better and work out and continue to have the long legacy of America that we do have.
Yeah, I think so. I'm the only person in the history of the universe to have lost his Senate seat to a deceased opponent.
Someone called up the first hour about that, and we said, hey, we've heard of the dead vote in Chicago, but we've never heard someone lose to one. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of evidence about voter fraud in that election, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
And even in a setting like that, when it appeared to be that was the end of me politically, which was fine with me. I had already had 30 years of basically 30 years of public service. But then it was kind of a resurrection for me when I got the call from Texas, said, "Can you bring your wife in a clean suit, President?" And then he offered me the opportunity and responsibility to be the United States Attorney General, which is almost unspeakable to me to this day. That is such a high honor, and it is a tremendous responsibility, and I'm grateful to the President and to God for giving me the opportunity.
Do you keep in touch with the President's family and the Bushes? Do you become socially
I have a
friends?
chance to be with them every once in a while, and I was with them maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago. We had a dinner in St. Louis. We had a good time together. It was really pleasant to see him again.
You know, I got to give him an awful lot of credit for staying so low-key and doesn't weigh in on things, just kind of lets the new administration do its thing. And I'm sure he's got a lot of opinions on how it's going, but give him a lot of credit.
He expresses himself on that point. And he said, "You won't see me trying to run the presidency from outside the presidency." And I think he felt that there were some individuals, and he doesn't name them, but it becomes pretty clear who they were, who went around.
Rhymes with Clinton, yeah.
No, I don't think that's it. No, but who went
Carter?
around the world trying to adjust foreign policy and do other things that made the president's job more complicated.
Yeah.
Especially in the foreign arena, where the president has a lot more information about what's going on than do former officials and the like.
Yeah, somebody who got out of there in the late 70s, yeah.
John, when people hear your name and your time as Attorney General, of course, the big thing, the hallmark of that time was the Patriot Act. And, of course, there was a lot of cries and screams about invasions of civil liberties, and we're as much as for civil liberties as the next guy. You know, so many years later now, most of those fears sound like they were kind of unfounded.
Well, I don't know where the victims are. You know, the people who have been abused, their civil liberties have evaporated. There is no set of victims. Now, I have had to, when I open a bank account, I have to give more information than I used to. I understand that. But in order to curtail terrorist financing, we couldn't allow people to have secret bank accounts that would then flow money to terrorist organizations that would seek to blow up America. And so much of this is concern about privacy, and I want to have privacy. But some of America has graduated beyond a desire for privacy to a demand for anonymity. And by that, I just mean people want to actually be able to do things in public that no one knows about. And business transactions are public. They're done in the world of commerce, and they've always been susceptible to discovery. But you know, look at the campaign slogan for Las Vegas. What happens here stays. Right. That's basically an idea that you can go out there and do things that no one will ever know about.
Right.
It's bad advice if you take it and you think that will happen because it'll come back to haunt you. But the whole idea that, we should be able to do things that we aren't accountable for, that's not an idea that has all positive value.
Right.
Well, this past week we just had the Supreme Court here, 3 days of testimony and arguments on the, of course, Obamacare and the individual mandate. So as a lawyer and a former attorney general, and you look at the constitutionality of, quote, the individual mandate in this, what's your opinion?
Well, I don't have any doubt that we've had judges that could call that constitutional.
Yep.
But I have no doubt that when the framers of the Constitution put in place the powers enumerated to the federal government, that they did not intend for the federal government to take over and to require an individual to purchase health care insurance, and that the government should have such a power would have been unthinkable to them.
Yes.
So if you believe in a Constitution that's growing, and the most attractive term they call it is organic, that is somehow living, well, I think there are ways for the Constitution to be amended. They're specified in the Constitution. It involves the people. It involves the states.
Yes.
If we're going to amend it, we ought to do it that way. We shouldn't have it sneak around the corner and be amended by judges. And so I joined in a brief from a number of former public officials, including prior attorneys general and solicitors general. And so I'm on record in this case.
Yeah, I think there's 26 or 28 states and attorney generals have come out and adamant against this and invasion of the constitutional rights.
You know, people talk about the rancor in Washington, and I had the privilege of serving in the United States Senate with some very fine individuals from Arizona, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
But the Senate can get rancorous when you get a long ways away from what the people really intended for the Senate to do.
Mm-hmm.
At the core of things, defending America, there's a lot of consensus. But when it comes to try and not defend America, but to invade the rights and personal circumstances of individual citizens, there's going to be a rancor. And I've recently thanked some members of the Congress for not being cooperative on things like that. I say whenever something comes up that's going to diminish my personal liberty, please don't be so conciliatory.
Yeah, be a pain in the butt. That's a good thing.
I didn't say that. That's your language.
That's true. We're on the air with former Attorney General John Ashcroft. He's speaking tomorrow at the Good Friday Breakfast, goodfridaybreakfast.com to get your tickets. There's still tickets available, 7 o'clock at the Tucson Convention Center. John, my question for you, we're running out of time, is we are in a community here in Tucson where we have a entrenched Democrat machine. And it is just, we were talking with Ted Nugent, we are turning into the Detroit of the desert. Crumbling urban infrastructure, the edges seem to be okay, lots of, too much money into transit and union stuff. And
not much business activity going on in the core.
And we have big elections coming up, not just presidential, but we have Pima County Board of Supervisors. What do you tell the folks right now? You're going to have about a minute to answer this. The ones that haven't been active before, why all this is important?
Well, people get what they ask for, and I hope that we haven't become such an entitlement society that we think we can just legislate things into existence. If we could just pass laws and create wealth and prosperity, we ought to just pass a law making everybody a millionaire and putting a couple Mercedes or Cadillacs in everybody's garage. You can't do it that way. We've tried that, and we're deeper and deeper in debt.
So has France and Greece and Spain. And
well, Greece has left a little residue of lubricant on the road behind it, and we're on that slippery road, and I'm afraid we'll slide in that direction. I just came back yesterday from Romania, and they took a 25% cut in all their salaries over there so they don't follow Greece. And I thought, there's a tough little country that's going to endure some pain, but they're going to set themselves up so they're not spending their grandkids' money.
Hey, John, we're running out of time, my friend. Thank you for coming on. Great interview. Joe will be there tomorrow morning.
I'll be there tomorrow. Look forward to hearing the story, and you'll be among about 800 local Tucsonans will be in the audience.
Well, I'll be delighted to see you. Please make sure I put a face with a voice tomorrow, Joe.
Yes, sir. You got it.
To see you.
All right, John, thank you for coming on, man. Have a great Easter.
All right.
See you. Bye.
Thanks.
All right, it's Chris and Joe. Thanks to John Ashcroft, Ted Nugent, Rocco from Rocco's Little Chicago. Remember, goodfridaybreakfast.com to get your tickets tomorrow. It's only $30 for breakfast plus John Ashcroft. Really awesome event. Joe, have a happy Easter.
You too.
Ed, have a happy Easter.
You too, guys.
Everyone, have a good, peaceful Easter, and we'll see you on Monday. Wake up, Tucson. You're on 1030 KVOI The Voice. The Saturday Night Live guy coming up next.
1030 KVOI Cortero, Tucson, and 930 KAPR Douglas. The Voice. Good News Radio Network.